all things Cayman, present and future. This is Talk with the Nation with Donna Bush on Vibe FM, presented by the Premier, the Honorable McKeeva Bush.
Welcome back to Talk with the Nation here on Vibe 98.9. The phone lines are open up. Folks, you can give us a call at 946-9898 if you have any questions, comments, or positive feedback for the Honorable Minister Rolston Anglin, the Minister of Education, or for MLA, Boddentown MLA, Mr. Dwayne Seymour. We are talking about education in the Cayman Islands. If you've been listening in, we've been talking about the strides that have been made in education, the reform programs over the last 3 years. All right, I believe we have a caller on the line. Caller, thank you for calling Talk with the Nation. Please go ahead with your question, comment, or feedback for us.
Hi, good afternoon to Minister Anglin, to MLA Seymour, and you, Miss Donna, the host. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi. No, this is Lorna Bush, and unfortunately, I just tuned in a few minutes ago, right at a point where I heard Minister Anglin speaking about some sort of remedial reading or some program for children with reading difficulty in the primary school years, and I am so curious to hear some more about that and to know what government has on offer right now, specifically for children with dyslexia and severe reading disabilities.
Okay, Ms. Lorna, thank you for calling. This is the second week you've tuned in to the show. Thank you, as always, for calling. And, of course, invite your friends and family to give us a call here and Talk with the Nation as we come to you guys on Vibe 98.9 every Wednesday evening. Minister Anglin, you want to address the question Ms. Lorna had?
Well, certainly, I mean, the key interventions that we've had has been our catch-up literacy program, our leveled literacy intervention, and our corrective reading program. And we've actually provided quite a number of our special support aids in our schools with very specific and targeted training. And a number of them, one of the approaches we use, is to give one example, is we trained them up in this in a specific program. And what we did was we took a number of our students who were right just but what we would consider below level for their age, so that we could give them that focused intervention to get them quote unquote over the hump.
Okay.
And that what that did was that took a number of students that the teachers the classroom teachers could more focus on the very low performers themselves. And of course, continue to monitor their high performers, keep them challenged, keep them moving, keep them doing what they need to do in class, and that has brought about some great results because we've been managing to reintegrate in terms of just the standard approach and the standard offering, increasing number of students who are not on this program.
Okay.
And so that's the key. I mean, now Ms. Bush mentioned something that is very that was very specific. She talked about people with very severe
dyslexia,
learning difficulties, and she mentioned, for example, dyslexia. One of the things that certainly we have struggled with, because we have a very small system,
right,
has been being able to deal with that 0.5% to 2% of children in any society who do have some of these very specific conditions.
Right.
We don't have the benefit of being a Florida, for example, who has spread throughout it a number of specialized institutions just for kids with things like severe dyslexia, etc.
Right.
What we have tried to do, and I think there's been successes in, assessing our children very early so that we know exactly where we are.
Right.
There was a huge complaint about the backlog of assessments. Children who were going diagnosed and observed in primary and they're not exiting our system and not even getting a formal assessment. We've done a lot of work to catch that up.
Right.
Because that in and of itself is a key part of the solution. But of course, after assessing, then what comes? And so we have worked diligently with parents where we've exhausted all of our options in the compulsory system to try and offer support in the private sector. And so we have been able to partner through Education Council grants, with Hope Academy,
Hope
for
Academy,
example.
right.
So the key has been, though, getting parents to be patient enough, to give some of our reforms a chance. Because, reform is one thing, Reform and having it up and running benefits the child that's coming behind.
Right.
But if you're that parent whose child is in year 4, and you see the end of primary coming very quickly, and you see what's happening to them, you naturally are going to be very anxious. And the last thing you want to hear about is, we're about to launch catch-up literacy.
Right.
We're about to launch corrective reading. And so that has been a struggle, trying to get some parents to say, look, give this reform a chance, so that we can actually say that we've exhausted every avenue in the system, and then we've moved on to try to add on the additional help. What I can also say is that the Premier has a vision that we support in the caucus, which is to have an institution that perhaps will have 2 skill sets. People who can deal with severe autism, not borderline, because the borderline we've managed to cope very well, I believe, in public schools in the last 3 years because of our training, and now we've translated training now into really focused interventions from mild autism, or people that are mild in the autism spectrum. And unfortunately, Donna, we've not been able to I've looked at our list of achievements and the things that we've done over these last 3 years.
A whole lot.
And there's just so much. We haven't even been able to touch inclusion and how we've managed to address inclusion. But just to say, the vision is that we would be able to get some sort of not-for-profit institute that would focus on severe autism and severe dyslexia, and having people with those 2 very different skill sets assisting children on island.
We're going to stick a pin there and come back. We have a caller on the line. Okay, Lorna, you're still there on the line with us? Hello, caller?
No, she got.
All right, the caller just hung up. Okay, you want to continue what you were talking about there? Minister Anglin, was about how you've been able to have your team really work in the reform program and address some of the challenges that we have in our education system with those students who may be a little bit more challenged than others. Do you want to continue?
Well, we've done a number of things. Key interventions have been music therapy, autism diagnosis, and what we call our new transition class. Music therapy has been one of the most underappreciated methods of assisting our very severe special education and special needs persons.
Right.
The next concert that they're going to have for Lighthouse or Sunrise Center, I said to the chief officer that we need, as a ministry, to go out and pay for the PR to try and get more people there.
Right.
Because when people get to see what music therapy can do and how it can completely change,
it's amazing,
a child, an adult, it is like night and day. But what we did, one of the keys in our manifesto was around autism.
Right.
The first step we took as a government was we hired in some private sector assistance in terms of, first of all, we gave our teachers intense training at the warning signs for autism. Okay. So that every classroom teacher themselves started to be focused about, what do I look for? What are the characteristics? Because I can tell you, mild autistic people go through, millions of them go through life every year, and up until recently, completely undiagnosed.
But you guys did it with ADHD, ADD, as well as dyslexia and other areas as well, not just autism.
Well, the system, we'd had a system with Aid Sykes and other people who did formal assessments for those areas.
Okay.
One of the key vacuums was around autism.
Okay.
And so what we did was, we had a local counseling company who had a staff member who had actually become qualified in the diagnosis of autism. And so they came to government and said, look, there's a need. You won't have to go hire new people.
Right.
And so the first thing they did was they provided us helped us with training, and then they also helped us on the assessment end for children who were suspected. And so that has been a key piece of work over the last 3 years, because what it's managed to help us do is is to know what's really happening with those children very early or much earlier. And because once you know, that's when you can actually start to assist a lot more. Our new transition class is something that's been very interesting as well. One of the things, as I said, one of the things that we observed was this lack of preparedness for primary. But if you want to take
I think we're going to take a call and then we can continue that conversation. Thank you for calling Talk with the Nation. Caller, are you there?
Yes, hello, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for calling the show.
Yes, I'd like to say I appreciate this show. I think it's going to be a good hit, and I like the chance that the ministers can have a nice way to express themselves to the public. I think it's going to be a good start with for the government to get its word out there. And I'd like to thank the two members that are there. Thanks for explaining to us. My name is Barry. Donna, I'd like to say you're doing a great job. Keep it up.
Thank you. We try.
And looking forward to spreading the word about the show. I think it's going to be a good hit.
All right.
And I'd like to congratulate all of those that are involved in getting the show started. I think it's going to be very good. And continue the great work, guys.
All right, Barry, thank you so much for calling Talk with the Nation. Hope you'll call us again soon. One of our listeners there just commenting on the show and the fact that, it's all about positivity and really educating you, our listeners, on what's happening in the country and various issues that affect our everyday lives. Today we are talking about education, and with me is the Minister of Education, Mr. Rolston Anglin, as well as Bordentown MLA, Mr. Dwayne Seymour. We're going to be wrapping up the show in about around 15 minutes, but you can give us a call at 946-9898 here on Vibe 98.9, Talk with the Nation. You can get your comments and your questions in to the Minister or Mr. Seymour here on the show. Mr. Anglin, you were saying something before we took that call.
Well, the other thing was, you asked what we were doing for those to support those of our students who do have some special needs, and our transition class has been one about focusing on kids who aren't quite ready for year one and ensuring that we don't just push them through. Because Mr. Seymour gave me a mantra that I'm now going to use for the rest of my life. If you get it wrong in the beginning, you're going to get it wrong in the end. And so another complaint that we've had for decades in this country is, well, why do we keep pushing children through? And it really has been about the fact that we haven't paid enough attention about what's happened and how prepared our kids are. And so once they start, there's always this, do you hold a child back, and there gets a point where you get diminishing returns. You cannot expect to have a 16-year-old in classes with 12-year-olds and it's going to work out well.
Yeah.
You really just can't. And we have to be real about that and about that whole fact.
Okay.
Now,
we're going to interject again. I'm so sorry, but we have another caller on the line. Caller, are you there? Thank you for calling Talk with the Nation.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
I have a question.
Can you please turn your radio down for us, caller? Thank you so much.
I have a question for the minister. It's regarding about the early learning.
Okay, go ahead.
I was informed, I'm a young mother, and I was informed by the preschool that my daughter attends that they've cancelled out all of the learning for the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s and all that stuff, as they've got a curriculum for learning by doing for kids of that age from 2 to 4. Is there any way that we can implement more actual, learning for that age so that we can start them out younger than primary school, as their brains are much more spongier at this age?
Well, caller, very interesting point, and I think what is something that I think all of us as parents, and I too have very young children, oftentimes the mistake is yes, they're sponges, but they're sponges not to be lined up and think that what we can do is feed them this diet of what looks like school. The most successful school systems in the world, in their early years programs, have a heavy learning through play methodology.
Right.
Montessori.
Montessori is one that embraces that wholly. And so the sponges, unfortunately, one of the things that happened in our country for years was that we tried too much with this ABCs, 1, 2, 3s when kids were very, very small.
Right.
And we taught them to fail early. We burnt them out and you got nowhere. What I want to say about the early years curriculum and the training that we've given to early years centers is about bucking the trend. And this takes patience. This takes patience and trust.
Right.
It's going to take patience on the part of parents and trust on the part of parents. Patience and trust that their children are on a journey. And how we get it right at the beginning of the journey is going to determine how high they're going to fly at the very end.
At the very end, okay.
And learning through play is god-awfully important because kids start to learn without even knowing that they're learning. And they're having fun. They're developing social skills.
Yeah.
They're learning how to interact. They're learning how to resolve social conflict. All the time they're learning, and they're able to now translate that at the appropriate age into the 1, 2 ABCs and 1, 2, 3s that a lot of parents want to get to very, very, very quickly.
Right.
Well,
Okay. Well, I hope you answered the caller's question, and I thank that caller for calling, and hope that she'll do the same in the near future when we're talking about other subjects of importance. Mr. Seymour, we're going to get to you in just a minute, but we're going to take a break now and be back with Talk with the Nation here on Vibe 98.9 in just a few minutes.
Email Talk with the Nation now at twtn@vibefm.ky.
All right, and welcome back to Talk with the Nation here. We're wrapping up our show this evening with the Minister of Education, Mr. Rolston Anglin, and Bordentown MLA, Mr. Dwayne Seymour. Before we went to the break, a few minutes before, though, we had a caller, a young woman who called in and said she had a young child who had just entered the preschool level. She had a question for Minister Anglin. Minister Anglin would like for you to be able to contact his team and be able to talk more about this issue. So we're going to give you contact details. If you could email us at talkwiththenation, TWTN at vibe.vibefm. So that's TWTN at vibefm.ky. Minister Anglin would be able to talk to you a bit more about that so that you totally understand what's happening with your concerns, because of course he's concerned that there's other parents out there who may have the same questions as you as well, and he'd like to be able to offer some information that can be useful
Absolutely,
to you.
Donna, and thanks for that, because I always say that this journey is about learning for all of us.
Right.
I have said this publicly because I'm a person, what you see is what you get. And I'm not ashamed about my own mistakes.
Right.
The shame is when you don't learn from them.
Correct.
I can say to the world, I made more mistakes as a father with my eldest daughter that I will never make again with the youngest one.
Right.
Because I too came from the school of thought about being heavy on the ABCs early, being heavy on this. My youngest child can sound out. She still can't even recognize every letter yet.
Right.
No.
But there isn't a letter in the alphabet that you can point at that she can't sound out, first of all.
Wow.
She can sound out almost every complex combination.
Wow.
Because I decided through advice from some friends, including Mr. Seymour and others, to put her last year in a Montessori school that really focused on learning through play,
Right.
and learning and giving you base skills, then adding the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s on.
Right.
And trust me, that for me was a huge leap. For me, coming through the age of going the generation that went to Miss Iz's school and John and then John Cumber, it was very much about lining you up. A, B, C, D. This word is this. This word is that. Dick and Jean. What was that? Dick and Dora. Whatever the early books were, I can't remember now. That we learned when we were very
We're too
early.
old now.
When we were very early.
Jack and Jill.
The Lady Bird books. Jack, and I came from that same school
Right.
of thought. What I also would like to encourage the public to do is go onto our website and actually access our early years curriculum.
Okay.
Because that curriculum is a wonderful resource for every young parent. It has recommendations for toys.
Oh, wow.
It has recommendations to what to look for when you go to your preschool.
That's wonderful. I didn't know that.
It has lots and lots of resources, and it also has what's most important, some developmental milestones. And so what it does is it breaks down different ages and says to you as a parent, here's what you should be looking for. Here's the skills that your child should be getting.
Okay.
I believe that our early years curriculum framework and the work we've done in the early years is going to really revolutionize learning in Cayman. And I believe that it's a long-term investment.
Right.
We're not going to reap the dividends until 13 years later once they've gone through reception and 12 years of compulsory education.
Right.
But Mrs. Seymour hit it, and it stuck with me. If we get it wrong in the beginning, we're going to get it wrong in the end. And so it really is about that all-important beginning and those all-important early years.
All right, Mr. Seymour, we're getting ready to wrap up in just a few minutes, in about 9 minutes here on Talk with the Nation. Any final words to our listeners out there that you'd like to leave with them? Or any particular topic that you'd like to hit on for a few minutes?
No, definitely endorse what the minister is saying. And my children, both of them went through the Montessori system, and they're still there. And I really like that system. I like the foundation. I'm not saying they're going to stay there, but I like the foundation.
Right.
That the base that gives my kids, and truly understanding what Sister Montessori was trying to achieve. And that's why I sent my children also to kinder music.
Right. My daughter did that as well. It was great.
And it's so important, and they're all interested in music and everything else, and we know how that tantalizes the brain.
Right.
But as I wrap up, I'd just like to say, that as we strive towards trying to make the education system better in the Cayman Islands, I definitely want us to don't forget that we need to find a way to reward our teachers and to keep them motivated, and for parents to continuously try to find out what assistance and what programs are out there to get the necessary help that they need to help their kids along. Even if they can't do it, whether they're working or otherwise, whether it's a good after-school program. And, remembering what the minister just says, if you don't start right, you're not going to end right.
Right.
For parents never to underestimate their children. They are smarter than you think. They are very smart. And, for the ministry, to continue, and this is the most important thing for me, and I know that Donna, you would have loved this too, for the ministry to continue the early assessments and knowing where your child is at. I'd like to thank you for having me on here.
No worries. We do have a few more minutes left. So, Minister Anglin, I'm going to give you an opportunity just to talk a little bit about when Mr. Seymour mentioned parents, the importance of the parent-teacher relationship, the importance of the parent-school relationship. We're all caught up in, working, and we have very busy lives, and times are difficult for a lot of parents, more so than they were a few years back financially, and we know it's, there's a global recession that's taken place, and not everyone, benefits the same way or can keep up with the same things that they used to do. But what would you say about the importance of the parent-teacher relationship as we go forward?
Well, how we involve parents and the wider community is fundamental to any reform. There can be no real reform of education by believing that it's about isolating children in a classroom. That's not going to drive reform efforts and a reform agenda. We are going to be reaching out to all of our PTAs very soon, because a couple of years ago, I met with PTA presidents, and I have this vision of forming a real strong association of PTA presidents, where we get, in a much more systemic way, even if it's once a term, PTA presidents coming together to discuss common issues among their parent body. Because you'll be surprised again when I talk about these pockets of good practice. You find that there's even pockets of good practice among PTAs.
Yes, there is.
Just that in and of itself will benefit our system. But the most important role that I want is I want to have a much more formalized way in which our parent body communicates with our department and with our ministry. And so really the vision of the PTA, of the National PTA, is going to be sort of similar concept of the Principals Consultative Council, giving PTAs a structure through which they formally communicate, and also then relying on the presidents and deputy and vice presidents of PTAs or HSAs, whatever the particular school may call their organization, going back to their parent body, sharing ideas, gathering information, doing surveys that we might ask them to do in the whole 9 yards. So really, I want to really put in place a real concrete structure that is going to really incorporate our parents in a way that they've never been incorporated in our system before. And so that's hugely important.
All right, I think we have a final caller on the line. Caller, if you have a quick question or comment or some feedback for our guests in studio this evening, please go ahead, and thanks for calling us here on Talk with the Nation.
Hi, interesting program. I just had one question for Minister Anglin.
Please go ahead.
I was just wondering if he was going to look at the system that our high schools are using now. Is there any chance that could be changed for us to go back to the way that it used to be? Where that we just, the exams, the final exams that they take, like when I was in school like 20 odd years ago, we just did O-levels and CSEs and stuff. I mean, that's what I like. Is there any chance that we're going to change that system back to the way it was? Or...
That's a very interesting question, because we still continue that system. We simply use different boards, ma'am. So right now, I mean, when you would have been in school, and you sound young, so I'm not gonna say that it was a long time ago, but I assume you were talking about when we would have taken, say, the GCE Cambridge exams.
Yes.
Right. Okay, so here's what we have right now. We have a number of exams that we sit under the Caribbean Examination Council. And so those are very much the same, just modern versions of what you would have sat as GCEs.
Oh, okay, because I have one just started reception, and I have one, well, both of them are Savannah. One is in her last year, but I'm just a little hesitant about those level of exams, because I actually moved mine and I sent her to St. Ignatius, she did Cambridge, Welsh and Cambridge, and it's a lot different than what kids that were in her age and in her class at John Gray did. When I compared the end result.
Right. Well, let me say this. I mean, and I can say to you with great confidence, CXEs are international accepted. CXEs get you into UK universities, US universities, and Canadian universities. The other thing that I want to say, and this is a great question that gives me a good opportunity to talk about a very important point, is that we also in high school do still offer some GCSEs. And GCSE is, again, that's a UK board. And there are a number of subjects that we do still offer as GCSEs as well. What we've tried to do, and there is a little complaint about this, is that we don't offer just CXEs.
Right.
So we didn't just say, oh, you know what, we're in the Caribbean, so we must offer only CXEs. We've offered CXEs where they're appropriate, and then in some other subjects, we've used other boards. So I'll use a classic example. She mentioned the Wealth Joint Examination Council. My niece just finished year 11, and she did her RE was under the Wealth Joint Examination Council. And so
mine too.
Okay, so we still are having some of those traditional boards that we used to use, but caller, I can say to you that I can assure you that CXEs are fully accredited, and certainly are internationally recognized and accepted. Now, what I would like to say is that when 3 years ago there was a real smorgasbord of boards that were being used, I called it was sort of like an alphabet soup. There were just too many different boards being used. I can also say that on Monday, we had caucus last, Mr. Seymour. On Monday, I sent out a directive that we're going to establish a working group that's going to be chaired by the two high school principals that are going to do two things. One, we're going to look at our option blocks, because I am not happy that our option blocks are really setting our children up for the highest level of success.
Okay.
It would seem as though we've tried to accommodate so much that we've really compromised a number of students who might be at the high end, and we need to think about, in my view, how we provide an offering, keep the current offering we have, but also have another side-by-side offering that allows there to be a much different type of approach for some of our more able students. The second strand that I've asked them to do is to actually do a strategic review of all the boards that are being used at the John Gray High School and the Clifton Hunter High School, so that we can actually start to really rationalize what boards we're using and for what reason.
All right, Minister Anglin, it has been a pleasure having you here with us on Talk with the Nation, as well as Mr. Dwayne Seymour, MLA from Bordentown. We've been talking education. This is a subject we could go on forever and ever and ever, and I'd like to take this opportunity to invite Mr. Anglin as well as Mr. Seymour back on Talk with the Nation at some point when they're well and ready to come on. As always, we thank you, our callers, for calling in. We apologize if we've had to cut you simply because of time restraints here. To our listeners out there, thank you as always for listening to Talk with the Nation. We hope that you will do the same again next week, Wednesday, right here on Vibe 98.9 at 4:30 in the evening. All right, up next on Vibe 98.9, VJ Vaughn is going to be bringing the latest tunes to you. Until next time, have a great night.